Well, get back on board because we're going around the world in 6 impersonations.
With his impersonations, he took crowds on roller coasters rather than trains, but his love life was a pretty dangerous ride itself. This man is the legendary Phil Hartman, described as the person who held the Saturday Night Live shows cast together like glue, and during this time, SNL was at its peak. His unfortunate death in 1998 shocked everyone, and the way it happened still sends shivers down everyone's spine. But before we talk about his untimely death, let's celebrate his legacy by talking about his life. So who exactly was Phil Hartman? Phil Hartman was born on September 24, 1948 in Brantford, Ontario, Canada. He grew up there as one of 8 siblings, before moving to the United States to pursue his dreams in comedy and acting. But before he made the big move, he was an ordinary kid. As he got older, Hartman discovered his artistic talents. He initially pursued a career in graphic arts, which was a more stable path than comedy. That led him to moving to Los Angeles, California, where he attended Santa Monica College, where he was instantly discovered as a hilarious and likable personality by everyone who came across Phil's path. His college friends described him as a type of person who loved living life, enjoyed partying, surfing, and living the rock and roll lifestyle. They saw his talent, and deep down, he had a passion for making people laugh.
One of my courses was a public speaking course where I met Phil Hartman. He was just so brilliant, you know, and I don't know of anyone on the planet that could instantly create.
Even though he had a job in graphic arts, Hartman always dreamed of writing and performing comedy skits. In his free time, he would often visit local clubs and try out his comedic routines. Phil's impressions were hilarious, and his friends at the time knew he was destined to be a star. This was something that Phil seemingly knew as well, but he still didn't pursue it. He continued living his crazy lifestyle, surrounded by famous people, women, and rock and roll. That led him to team up with his brother, who had a management company in the early 70s. He started working as a graphic designer, designing album covers for rock bands, some of the more popular ones being America and Poco. Yet that wasn't enough for Phil, as he was mostly doing work behind the scenes. As he stated during one of his interviews, it was all a bit too introverted for him. But in 1975, he decided to take a chance and pursue comedy. He made the bold move to leave his job in graphic arts and follow his passion for making people laugh. This decision ultimately led him to join the renowned comedy troupe The Groundlings in Los Angeles, where he began to gain recognition for his comedic talent during the improv shows they were hosting. The people from The Groundlings said that he was an audience member, and when they asked for someone to join them on stage, he jumped on and owned the show with his impressions and charisma. The thing with Phil is that unlike most people there, he didn't create the improvised characters by just saturating or exaggerating himself. He basically made completely new personas, as if they were there to hide the real Phil Hartman. With such a unique style and dedicated acting, his presence was bound to be noticed. Behind the curtains of his improv performances and the cameras of the many show and movie appearances he made, such as the Pee Wee Herman Show, Phil was struggling to truly find himself. He was already married once from 1970 to 1972 with Gretchen Lewis, and his second marriage, which was also quite brief with Lisa Strain, lasted from 1982 to 1985. Lisa stated that he was never truly himself, he was never vulnerable, and that as soon as a situation where he should arise, he would just go cold and distant. Lisa had this to say about Phil.
My sense of Phil was that he was really two people. He was the guy who wanted to draw and write and create and come up with ideas.
I had my hair changed to pure brass.
The actor-entertainer, and then he was the recluse.
Needless to say, their marriage was short-lived. Shortly after that in 1985, not too long ago after getting married, Phil met Bryn Omdahl. She was as beautiful as they come, and as with his previous 2 wives, he fell head over heels for her instantly. The third time's the charm, they say. But little did anyone know that this woman would not only change Phil's whole persona, but eventually she would be the one to bring forth his untimely demise. Bryn was a small-town girl from Minnesota, who came to Hollywood to pursue her acting and modeling dreams. She was funny, beautiful, and above all else, she was the type of woman Phil wanted to have by his side. The fact that she was a decade younger was a bit weird, but no one was bothered by it. Everything seemed great, but it was too good to be true. Bryn struggled with addiction. She, like many others who come to Hollywood pursuing their entertainment careers, got addicted to cocaine. She went through rehab once, and Phil took that as a sign that it was a done deal. Their relationship from the start seemed transactional, as she was the young actress looking for roles, and Phil was the up-and-coming star looking for a trophy wife. But as with all his previous relationships and marriages, they start passionately and quickly, and with time, the cracks start to show. In 1986, Phil got the role he was looking for, a role that would propel him to stardom. He would join the SNL show. After playing multiple husbands in the show that year, in real life he would become a husband for the third time, and this time his wife would be Bryn Omdahl, now Bryn Hartman. This was the combination that started the toxic tendencies in their relationship. Bryn would often visit SNL and flirt with writers all the time. Even if Phil was there, his fascination with his beauty blinded him, making him feel like she could do anything. I mean, look at my appearance and look at hers. She started pursuing her acting career even more, trying to seize the opportunity that her husband was given. This continued with time, but in 1988 Sean was born, the first of the 2 children they would have together. Phil discovered fatherhood and loved it straight away. This makes it even harder for him to even think about leaving Bryn. In the meantime, Phil was having huge success as a writer for SNL. He almost gave the show the second wind it desperately needed at the time.
Phil Hartman, the glue. We call Phil the glue because he holds the show together. Without the glue, there's trouble.
He won an Emmy in 1989 for his outstanding writing for the show. One of his most memorable roles was brought forth with the presidency of Bill Clinton, as it produced this gem.
Please, don't tell Mrs. Clinton.
Jim, let me tell you something. There's gonna be a whole bunch of things we don't tell Mrs. Clinton.
As his career continued to blossom with the news radio star role in 1995 to 1998 and his numerous character voiceovers for The Simpsons from 1991 to 1998, Phil was on top of the world. The opposite could be said about his personal life. His marriage was marked by constant arguments, followed by constant makeups, and that toxic lifestyle would only continue even further. Phil truly loved both Sean and later on his daughter Bergen as well, who was born in 1992. Her birth was even announced on SNL.
We would like to welcome into this world Miss Bergen Hartman.
He truly loved being a father. He stated multiple times that regardless of his success, it was the thing that made him the happiest. Bryn was also a great mom. She was caring and loving, and their family life seemed perfect. In reality, Bryn seemingly continued doing drugs. She wasn't happy with her personal life. Was it the success that Phil got and she didn't? Was it the fact that her career stopped in its tracks after a few appearances on some shows? No one knew at the time. Phil was working constantly and Bryn hated that. She didn't like it at all. She grew more jealous of the men and women Phil was surrounding himself with. Even after he left SNL in 1994, Phil continued to work hard on The Simpsons and news radio. He did so up to May 28, 1998, the day he was shot and killed by his wife Bryn, who would, later that day, take her own life as well. On that fateful night, it's believed that Bryn's substance abuse triggered the couple's demise. That night, Bryn had a drink with her friend Christine Zander. However, when Bryn returned to the Encino home, Phil saw that she was high. That started their argument over her drug usage. The argument turned deadly and Bryn shot her husband 3 times, once in the chest and twice in the head as their children slept upstairs. After Bryn killed Phil, she went to a friend's home where she confessed that she murdered her husband, but her friend didn't believe her. Then the concerned friend returned to the Hartman home with Bryn and saw Phil's body, immediately calling 911. When the police arrived at the house, they found the couple's young children, aged 9 and 6 at the time, unharmed. As they were escorting the children, police heard a single shot from the bedroom of the home. Both Phil and Bryn were then found dead in the couple's bedroom. This tragic story would shake the whole world, and it's being talked about as we see it to this day. Father, writer, comedian, husband, and comedy legend, Phil Hartman was no more. His wife Bryn also suffered a tragic death, as her substance abuse made her into something else, something capable of leaving 2 small children behind as orphans. This was the tragic story of Phil Hartman and his wife Bryn.